And let's continue on our world tour now of design and go to Barcelona. And from Barcelona, we have our next keynote speaker and somebody who will certainly shift your view of human-centered design. Cecilia Tham is a founder, a future synthesist and principal at Futurity Systems. Her mission is to learn, to create, and to prototype futures for positive impact. She comes up with future-driven solutions in the intersection between technology, impact, and business opportunities. She works to validate, de-risk, and develop these solutions for a number of companies and organizations. What she does is she creates technological solutions for global impact with a special interest in responsible consumption and climate change. She has led projects about the future of food, where she's proposed really interesting things like plantable meals, culturing meat using plant cellular scaffoldings, and a number of other really interesting works. So please welcome Cecilia Tham.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for the introduction, Surya. I'm a little bit nervous coming after Richard. He actually has been a longtime friend, so I'm really glad to be following his presentation. So lovely to be here. Thank you for the invitation. I am going to start my screen and share. So I'm going to kind of walk you through a little bit about what I do, and also a little bit about the company as well, because it is I would say it is a relatively new kind of initiative. So we are Futurity Systems, and what we do is we provide futures as a service. And by that, I mean we are kind of a 360 provider for companies and for organizations to be able to imagine about the future, design, but above all to implement, prototype and implement those futures. And I will give some examples of what those things are. We do a lot of kind of understanding of the framework. One of the things that we have learned through this processes of futuring is that we are still in the kind of initial, I would say initial phase of learning about how to incorporate different both aspects and frameworks. And so organizations as well as companies are having a hard time kind of tackling these unknowns. So the way to do this, and for a very long time, we have been approaching this through the lens of forecasting. And here, this is a very well-known framework called the Ansoff matrix that we look upon, really trying to kind of push beyond the boundaries of just having new products and new markets onto the onto the society, but of not really understanding what are some of the game-changing opportunities and even the threats and risks that are on our horizon. And when we are looking into the future space, a lot of times what we really do need is a couple of different boundaries and also validation techniques to understand how those things are becoming into our reality. And so in this particular diagram, we're illustrating how we start with our imagination, we start with design, and then with every one of these different boundaries, we start asking ourselves questions. So for example, the first question that once we have that kind of concept, that design in mind, we ask ourselves, well, is that just a fantasy, or can we actually do this? And that's a science question. And then the second question, once we have validated that, yes, we can do this, can we do this at scale? Can we engineering this? And this is particularly an engineering question. Can we produce this in mass? And then the third question that we ask after we have asked the engineering question is a business question. Can we do this sustainably? And then we actually have a couple of other benchmark in trying to understand whether this is impactful, whether how this is going to apply into the society. And there are multiple other layers where we validate some of the ideas that we have. But as we migrate from imagination all the way to business, that is when a product comes into fruition and also come into the market. And so a lot of times we do these cycles where we come up with this, we have this methodology called synthesizing futures, where we are very much design future driven, so that we can kind of gather all of these different insights and different knowledge, and then create experiments so that we can really quickly de-risk and understand the problem space, and then create an assessment and the recommendations of the experiments that we have done. This is we call ourselves future synthesis for a reason. And the reason is that the exercise of futuring actually requires very multidisciplinary approach. And so from kind of the business strategy, and that is encompassing in, the forecasting, scenario planning, and even foresight, all the way to connecting to kind of the technology and science behind that particular driver, and also connecting to the more abstract and conceptual aspect of futuring, which is the designed and the artistic conceptual approach of understanding, imagining, and even building for the future. So as you can see, this becomes a very complex system of different aspects of tools, insights, nodes, and experiments, and we have kind of created this repository for us to be able to manage almost this process of futuring. And so that's a lot of theory. I wanted to kind of like jump in and give you some of the examples that we have created. And these are all the work that we have done that I call these pet projects. These aren't our client projects, and we save those for our clients. But these are the projects that are my favorite, and I will explain and go in depth with a few of these. And so I'm going to start with this project. This is on the future of food vertical, and we call this plantable meals. And what we did was that I'm sure a lot of you have heard and have seen cultured meat cells in petri dish. And they're actually going into market in some countries and have already gone to market in Singapore. So it's not even that far of a future. But we took it one step further and asked ourselves, can we actually use the scaffolding of a vegetable, in this case a tomato, so that we can give almost like turn a tomato into a bioreactor for culturing meat instead of using machinery to be able to culture meat. Now we're gonna the first question that we asked, going back to that diagram that I showed earlier, is that, well, is that even scientifically possible? And so based on our research, the answer is yes, you can. Scientists have already been able to culture human heart cells on spinach leaves, beating human heart cells in spinach leaves. And so the idea of being able to culture meat cells in the future is possible. So we have only validated the scientific question. Can we do this at scale? No, you cannot at this moment in time. And that will probably, we're talking about a 5 to 10 year horizon in the future. But the idea here is that, can we actually grow, the whole entire meal inside the plant? Meaning, can we have not only just the meat, but also the garlic, the onion, the whole entire meal being able to be grown inside one single plant, so that you can avoid packaging, avoid being able to have to separate and waste food in the process of making this. So this was a speculative piece that we did, and we also kind of tried out and experiment how people would react to such a hybrid creation, and we kind of surgically implanted some cultured meat inside the tomato and served it to people, and it was really interesting that some people actually was very averse to this kind of a Frankenstein of a hybrid. So another iteration of this line of thesis is our project of the growable organs. So based on this understanding of, if in the future we can plant human heart cells in spinach leaves, well, can we actually grow a whole entire organ? And so we kind of created, this is even, further future of, so on the right, you will see this kind of, the artichoke beating, but we wanted to kind of really design around this possibilities that we can grow our own gardens, grow our own organs in our own garden in the future, where they can be used as, human part substitutes. And so that's kind of more of a thought exercise than an actual product in the making. Coming back into the future of food, we played a lot on this topic called electronic edibles. A little bit of contextual understanding of why we went this route is because a lot of what we do, our practice with food, our relationship with food nowadays have been in the side of, we no longer just eat for sustenance, we also eat because of pleasure. So hedonic eating. And the thesis behind this project was that if we can separate the pleasure from the sustenance, can we then save calories? Can we then not have so much food waste and kind of eliminate obesity at the same time? So that was kind of the thesis of why we created this experiment. So what is electronic food? So we did this really quick prototype of really understanding how electricity can produce taste on our tongue. And so on the right, you can see the diagram where the tip of your tongue, by passing electricity, you can taste sweetness, salt in the side, umami in the middle, and bitter in the back. And everyone, based on their sensitivity, will have different reaction on how much they can taste and what they can taste. So we built this prototype called the electronic popsicle and added a ceramic plate that can induce coldness, because we discovered that temperature can also change the way you taste. And then from there, the next iteration, we wanted to connect to a musical piece, essentially making us have the ability to taste music. So almost synesthesia, where we're crossing different sensorial experiences with food, and the whole entire project is based upon this kind of another thesis, which we're calling decoupling. So when you decouple, in this case, we're separating the sense of taste from the food itself, we can actually recombine them in new ways. And so by recombining them and by making them digital, then here, for example, imagine the future of the Spotify for taste, where you can taste music almost like an orchestrated piece. So along the same thesis is so in the previous one, we were separating taste from food. In this project, the Vapor Hall, we're separating smell from food. And so here we are using a humidifier, hacked humidifier, to be able to kind of replicate. So instead of putting water in the humidifier, what we did was we put alcohol. And we put alcohol with different essential oils so that we can replicate the experience of smell with food. We even projected a little fishy here to see if we can replicate the sense of sight. And so you can now the thesis then could be not only having Spotify for smell, but we can also the Spotify for taste, like the one before. We can also have, what if we put this in and choreograph our senses of smell so that we can also have the Spotify for smell in the future. And then if you combine these different sensorial experiences, then we are opening up a door of how we can have a relationship with food in the future that doesn't actually require us wasting our calories and wasting food, and have the different experiences with pleasure, with food. So away from that example, I'm actually really excited about this project. This particular project is on this vertical of not just the future of food, but also the future of commerce. And we were looking at this idea of autonomous farming. And so we built Plantbud, and this is Herbie. Herbie is a plant that has different sensors connected to it. And so we're measuring Herbie's temperature, we're measuring water level, humidity, light, and other different variables, and basically measuring the physiological status of the plant itself. And then we connected Herbie to a bot, to wheels on wheels. And why are we doing this? Because we wanted to kind of ask ourselves, can we give plants back its autonomy? Can we, and what does that even mean, right? Just to give you a little bit of understanding what it means to have autonomy versus automatic, right? So if you have a couple of different what's the word I'm looking for? If I want the bot to do a few things, so move 1 square over, 2 square forward, that is an automatic kind of algorithm. But if we want to give bots its own decision-making capability, that is when you start giving a plant autonomy. And so we wanted to give plant we want to test up this idea of what does it even mean to give plants this autonomy. So Herbie here can actually navigate itself. When his water level is low, he goes to the water source. When the light is, when he needs sunlight, he goes to the sun. But we also wanted to kind of push this a little further and say, if you can imagine this as a tomato plant, can Herbie have the ability to sell his tomatoes or herbs? And if so, can Herbie have a bank account? And can Herbie, then you can go down this rabbit hole of asking this question, what kind of entity does Herbie have? Can he vote? Can he have citizenship rights? Can he own things, right? So we kind of went down this road of really understanding and pushing what it means to have plant autonomy. And then what we did was that we took it a step further, understanding really what does that all mean in the future space. And we created, as all of you have heard, this metaverse being all the hype lately. But we wanted to kind of understand it in the context of plants. And so we created this project called NF Trees. And so this is Minty. Minty is Herbie's friend. Minty does not have mobility capability yet. We will. Minty is in the making. But in the same process, we're measuring Minty's physiological state. And what we did was that we then converted Minty and Herbie's physiological state into a manifestation of a tree. And so the temperature then gets converted into tree size. The soil humidity is the branch length and leaf color. Air quality is the leaf, the different kinks and the different leaf color that it has. So all of this actually translate into what you're seeing here, which are 500 different visualizations of what the status of the plant actually is. And what we did then with the plant is that we minted it onto as an NFT, and we sold it, a few of them, and it's actually the second NFT. So the first round of NFTs will be launched on March 21st. The idea behind this is that we wanted to be able to raise the fund we need to place those funds into sustainable initiatives, essentially giving plants the autonomy to be able to fund itself. So almost removing the human in the equation, just kind of gathering the funds from humans in order to fund itself. So plants funding plants. That's kind of the goal. And we're currently doing an MVP of this, but the next stage of this is to plant these different sensors into a horse and run the exact same mechanics so that we can start creating a fund for sustainable costs for forests. And with that, I'm going to share with you the very last project. This project is also in the metaverse vertical, and we call this the Store of Future Things, short for SOFT. This is a physical space that is located in Barcelona. In fact, we are launching this on the 1st of March, so next Tuesday. And the store has no inventory. It has no stocks. It has nothing. In fact, it is empty. This is a store for digital assets, meaning that a user will come into this space. They will experience this either through their own phone or on an iPad or a device that we handed, or even an Oculus. And they can then choose whether they want to see digital clothing, or they want to see our Plantiverse plants and trees, or NFT arts. And they can walk around the space using augmented reality and see the collections that they have selected. And so the idea behind here is that, for a very long time, we have been, having stores, physical stores that sell physical things. And then the whole kind of internet and e-commerce pivoted us into having virtual stores that sell physical things. And I think this is kind of an experimental project to see if we pivot that around and what happens when we have a physical store that sells digital things, and what does that even mean, and how would that impact our future? And so I'm going to end with more practical things. I mentioned earlier that we have this methodology called synthesizing futures, where we really try to kind of take people into this journey, almost a time traveling journey, and we create a map that is understanding the futurescapes, creating that story, essentially the perspective of the users in that world, creating that object, and so the things like the vapor hole and the electronic popsicle, there are these objects that sits in this future world, and then creating the roadmap to understand how we can arrive to those worlds. And I wanted to emphasize that, talking about designing for the unimagined, and I really wanted to kind of make a point about how we have not, as humans, been very intentional about the consequences that we have based on our decisions and the things that we have made. And so part of the synthesizing future mechanics is that we need to introduce what some of these negative consequences, not just the positive ones, and not just the ones that can benefit us commercially. So what are those negative consequences, and how, and not just the first order, but multiple order of magnitude, to really truly understand how these will be impactful. And so with that, I'm just going to end with a couple of takeaways that I suggest we all, be really mindful and be prepared, that be ready to what it is to come. And that means to be more future literate and have more capabilities in future making, so that you can be have more tools and methodologies to tackle uncertainties. And the second thing is be intentional about these consequences that I talked about, both intentional as well as unintentional ones that coming out of our decisions and our creations. And the last one is I would like to invite all of you to be proactive in creating the futures that we all want. So thank you very much. Please connect with me. Here's my email. I'd love to continue these conversations with all of you, fellow designers. And thank you again, WDO, for inviting me for giving this talk today.
Thank you, Cecilia. Oh my God, that was amazing. This was like a masterclass in 20 minutes on speculative design and bringing imagination into the world of designing for the unimagined. There's some things that just so powerful about your talk. In design, I'm an industrial designer, and design we move from, at some time design plastics and metals and glass, and you move to data and algorithms and pixels. And now you bring in a whole new vocabulary, the biological vocabulary. So he's kind of like a mad scientist of design. I absolutely loved it. And I love your approach to time travel into the future to address anchor unknowns one at a time. And, Richard spoke about radical inclusivity. And I also really resonated with the idea that, each of us is capable of proactively shaping the future we want. And this is regardless if we're a person, a plant, or a planet. What a powerful idea. So you're certainly taking our conception of designing to a new realm of the imagination. So thank you so much. That is wonderful.
Thank you so much for having me.